Fellas, this week, the Deepstone Crypt is the feature raid. This means you can farm each encounter for red box raid weapons. And the reason why we're bringing this up and making this guide is because Bungie recently buffed the red border drops for all raids and the Duality Dungeon. Now, there's some disagreements whether it was actually a significant buff or not, because there are still many players reporting the drop rate is still low. We actually ran the raid last night, and I was the only one to actually get a red border, which is pretty terrible. Now, what encounters should you farm? Depending on the weapons or roles that you want, that will actually determine which encounter you're farming. You can't just farm one encounter for all of them. Now, for the first encounter, you can actually get Trusty. For the second encounter, you can get Heritage and Succession. For the third encounter, you can get Heritage and Posterity. And for the fourth encounter, you can get the Commemoration Machine Gun and Bequests. So depending on which one of these weapons you actually want, that'll be the deciding factor for you on which encounter you go for. Now, with this being the feature raid this week, not only can you continually keep doing the raid over and over and getting drops, but all the challenges will be available as well, which means if you complete them, you'll get double loot, increasing the odds of you getting a red border. Now, I do not recommend doing the challenge for the first encounter. It requires everyone on your team to actually shoot 2 operator panels downstairs, which takes 3 phases. So guys, it's significantly faster to just simply do the first encounter, complete it in 1 phase, and if you gotta redo it again, then redo it again. But to extend it to 3 phases, that just takes way too long, in my opinion. Now, the second encounter is really easy because all it really requires you to do is to never deposit the replication buff in an airlock. This challenge is easy as long as you can 1-phase Atraks, which we're going to be explaining how to do later. For the third encounter, this requires each player to never pick up the same buff twice. Now, the best way to keep this organized is actually to assign everyone in the group numbers 1 through 6, and you can even follow this graph that we have here on screen, but essentially just trade off buffs between every player in a set rotation, and you'll complete it with no problem, even on challenge. And for the fourth encounter, this is actually the easiest one. The final challenge when finding Taniks, it's probably done this way for you already, as most people just incorporate this into their normal runs, but you need to dunk all 4 nuclear cores at the same time. Now, this removes the need for the scanner buff and actually gives you 3 phases of damage against the boss, which is plenty to send him to the final stand for that kill. Now, before we get into the random roll portion of these weapons and why I think you should go for them, because the craftable versions of these are really, really good, I do want to talk about loadouts. This may be the easiest part to this whole guide, Grand Overture. With Retrofit recently getting nerfed, and we actually did an entire video going over its damage and of course volatile, Grand Overture has become the new king, at least for us. I know there's other options out there, but in terms of just being a brain dead strat, this is a weapon so many people are sleeping on. It's just so easy to proc. Both with Atraks and Taniks, you can easily 1-phase with Grand Overture. Now, you're still gonna want to run things like a linear for the first encounter, but at the same time, you can do Grand Overture even for the first encounter. It doesn't do that much splash damage. Just make sure you don't shoot it with its volley. Just shoot it in single fire mode. And of course, the third encounter, it really doesn't matter as you're not really doing any damage. You're just clearing ads. But for damage specifically, really guys, just put on Grand Overture. For Atraks, you actually prime the volley on his copies while he's immune. This will actually load missiles. And when he starts his wipe mechanic, all you have to do is everyone on your team throw a grenade and fire a single volley of Grand Overture. This will secure the 1-phase. Now, we do recommend whoever it is that's picking up the scanner buff, they be a Thunder Crash Titan with our Yeet exotic. That way you can just back up and wait for that final stand Atraks and then immediately Thunder Crash him to get the KO. Now, if you're rocking an entire team of Thunder Crash Titans, then obviously you don't have to use things like Grand Overture or really even any weapons. But the beautiful thing about everyone rocking Grand Overture is, number 1, I feel like everyone probably already has this machine gun, and number 2, it really doesn't require you to be on a set class. Anyone can use it. Now, for Taniks, you do the exact same thing here. You prime your volley on the boss while he's still in the center, and when damage starts, pop a well and a tether to guarantee that easy 1-phase. Now, to make things easier, I do suggest having a second way to debuff Taniks once your tether runs out, whether that's weak and clear or even just relying on Void 3.0. Just have a second method there to debuff Taniks. And again, the beautiful thing about Grand Overture for DPS is that it's mindless. You don't even have to get kills. It's not like Parasite. You just need to hit a target, even if they're immune 20 times. Now, some final notes here, guys. Do not use things like Chill Clip or even AoE attacks when killing servitors near Atraks right before damage phase, as after killing that final servitor, if your grenade is still doing damage, it can hit the wrong Atraks, and of course can cause a wipe. But other than that, guys, this is pretty straightforward. The same mechanics we've seen all along, and if you've been doing the Revision 0 mission every single week, that same suppressor, operator, and scanner mechanic is the exact same thing here. During the first encounter, you have someone that actually picks up the scanner buff. They see which one of the nodes down below the operator has to shoot. The operator goes down below, shoots the one the scanner scanner calls out, proceeds to pass the operator back upstairs. Someone else picked it up. The scanner passes down scanner back downstairs, and whoever it is downstairs just simply calls out which one of the nodes upstairs you need to shoot. And for Atraks, this one's very simple. As we normally like to send 4 to space and keep 2 down low, one of the people down low waits to get the operator buff to call back the 2 shuttles, and the 4 that's in space clears everything except 1 servitor, and that's the servitor you leave up right before DPS phase. Once the 2 teammates rendezvous with the other 4 up in space, kill the servitor, find the right Atraks, go to Pound Town, and it's a GG. The third encounter is essentially just you running around, picking up a variety of the buffs. Operators will shoot the correct red panel. Scanners will call out which one of the boxes to actually deposit these nukes in, and Suppressor will essentially just stand in each one of these areas and shoot the boss. And again, you can rinse and repeat here, but do this in a way that everyone is picking up one of these buffs first. That way you can get the challenge mode. And again, for Taniks himself, guys, very straightforward. You don't even have to go for the scanner buff. Whatever side that Taniks actually goes to, that means the other 2 sides is where you actually need to deposit the nukes. Shoot the legs out, drop the nukes. Whoever it is that's running Suppressor, go to the 3 locations that Taniks is on, shoot some shots off. That way everyone with the nukes can deposit, and that will actually open up damage phase. I think most of you probably already know the mechanics here for Deepstone Crypt, but I just wanted to run through it one more time. Now, as far as the god rolls to go for, Posterity has some very unique ones, including things like Volt Shot and Frenzy, both of which you can get as enhanced. Honestly, to me, that seems like a deadly combination. Now, I've been hearing that Perfect Float and Frenzy has been a great trait combination, as Perfect Float activates Frenzy sooner. We haven't tested that ourselves or even tested to see if that's like a visual bug of some sort. But again, personally, Volt Shot, Frenzy, that's the combination that I want. And again, with all of these weapons, Bray Inheritance is the origin trait where dealing damage regenerates a small amount of ability energy. And again, we have an artifact mod which actually boosts this even more. Now, the next weapon is Succession. Again, the role that I want, guys, firing line, reconstruction all day long. I know there's going to be some people that swear by it inside of PvP. I'm not saying you can't use a snapshot moving target role. I personally don't really care for Succession inside of PvP, but to each their own. Trusty. I actually like Trusty in both PvE and PvP. Great combinations right here, guys. You've got Incandescent, Perpetual Motion, Rapid Hit. We did a video a long time ago going over high impact reserves and how it works with weapons like Trusty, adding more forgiveness. Considering you have things like Under Pressure and high impact reserves, yes, you can prime Trusty down, which makes it even more accurate and deadlier inside of PvP. But the role that I want 100% is an Incandescent role with either Rapid Hit or any of these other combinations. I know we have Surplus, Perpetual Motion, a lot of these contributing to that reload, as well as Reconstruction for that auto reload. And again, you can get Enhanced Reconstruction as it reloads itself at an improved rate. Heritage. Guys, the combination here on Heritage that I'm actually really curious to try, because I used to run around hip firing with a slug shotgun inside of PvP, is hip fire and offhand strike. It seems like a weird combo. I actually want to try it out. Who knows? Might be terrible. Inside of PvE though, you've got that Reconstruction recombination combo, which seems pretty interesting, especially considering recombination got a slight tweak this past season. Focus Fury is also present on this weapon, but again, Focus Fury does have issues with proccing with perks that boost the magazine size, so I'm curious to know how Reconstruction and Focus Fury actually synergizes. Next, we have Commemoration. If we were still in the Gerfalcon meta that we were in last week with Retrofit, before Volatile got nerfed, I would have been all over this thing. Now, that's not to say that this weapon isn't great. It synergizes wonderfully well with things like Gerfalcons. It's got Repulsor Brace, which means it's going to be proccing every single time. You can even do things like Repulsor Brace with Reconstruction, or even Dragonfly, Repulsor Brace, or even Subsistence and Repulsor Brace. And again, the reason why I bring up this combination is just purely to take advantage of the survivability that Gerfalcons offers and the constant reprocking of Repulsor Brace. The weapon on its own though, you've got Killing Tally, you've got Firing Line, both of which offers some pretty substantial weapon buffs. Killing Wind maxes out at 30%, but of course requires kills, whereas Firing Line just procs, giving you that 20% buff when standing next to allies. Both are good, depends on what you're doing, but a lot of great options here for this machine gun. And finally, we have Bequest. Such a gorgeous sword, man. You've got enhanced traits here, which is really deadly. Enhanced chain reaction. If you're looking for mega arc explosions, look no further. You can even combine it with things like Wellspring or even Thresh. Tireless Blade would actually contribute to more ammo, or even a combination of Unrelenting and chain reaction for survivability. By the way, don't overlook Surrounded. Surrounded actually got a buff this past season because Surrounded spec was deprecated, thus buffing the damage of Surrounded overall. And then of course you have Enhanced Surrounded. Now, I personally have never tested Enhanced Surrounded, so somebody can let me know in the comments below, as it states you gain an improved bonus damage versus just a bonus to damage. Curious to know how much more that is, especially since Surrounded just base is supposed to be doing 35% more damage. I know know that swords are supposed to be slightly less than that, so maybe it's 30% for swords, but either way, very, very curious to know what enhanced around it is putting out. So guys, good luck this week. Grind this raid. It's a beautiful raid, and whatever you do, crank up that music when you hit the space portion of this raid. It still gives me chills. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.